Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Mental Mosaic with Kiki Garcia. Now, my whole goal here is to share stories about what we're going through, what we've been through, just so we can feel not so alone and understand that there's other people out there who are going through so much as well. I think just knowing that you're not alone is so important. As you know, I lost both my parents to cancer, and it was just gut-wrenching. I feel like everyone's life and everyone's family gets ripped apart by cancer, and I don't know, it's just heartbreaking. So when I had an opportunity to talk with Theresa Brown, I had to grab it, because you come from a different perspective, both sides. You're a nurse and you're a patient, so you've seen both sides. What have you learned as a nurse dealing with cancer patients? What have you seen over the years that has changed you?
Yeah, well, as you said, I've seen a lot of lives uprooted, families struggling, and definitely working in oncology and then in hospice, also with a lot of cancer patients. It really helped me zero in on what's important in life. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but if you do this work, it's so true. Are my kids with me? Are they healthy? Is my husband doing okay? I've been at a number of deathbeds, and what matters is at the end is who's there, who is caring about you. And I try to really hold on to that. It's not easy, but I would say that's the most powerful thing I took away as a nurse.
Just you saying that is like making me want to cry. So I'll get right into
Oh,
the next question, because I mean, the hospice system, I don't know what to call it, organization, I don't know, is they're amazing. Like, they did so much for my mother in the last 3 days of her life, and not just coming and making sure she was good and checking her vitals and all like that. We had one hospice who just came and sat and read the Star and the Inquirer to her, which my mother loved gossip. So yeah, so that lady, she sat there for 2 hours and just read both magazines from cover to cover. And when she ran out, she Googled it. And another lady came and just, fixed her hair, did her nails, all like that. And
wow.
it was so, I don't even know what the word is. It was just so nice, and it gave us a minute to exhale, knowing she was okay. And the care that they put in, it was just immeasurable. It was just wonderful. Tell us a little bit about your story. Now, you were nursing, but then you got the diagnosis that we all are dreading in our life as well. Is that correct?
Yes, in September of 2017, was diagnosed with breast cancer. And yes, that moment is life-changing, truly. Again, another cliche, but also true. And what I learned as I went through being a patient, and what inspired me to write my book, Healing, is that we are not very compassionate towards patients. I felt like a person on an assembly line, and everyone just wanted to kind of move me along as efficiently as possible from their point of view. And that's what got me to write the book, because as a nurse, I saw that, but I felt like we care so much, we're doing so much good, which was true.
Mm-hmm.
But as a patient, I saw there's all these cracks and glitches and system breakdowns, and no feeling that someone's really looking out for you. I mean, there are exceptions, but my experience from what I've heard is the same experience a lot of people have. And so there is no real healing. It's like we can fix you, we'll get your carburetor changed out, but there's no sense of being looked after. And that those lovely stories you just told about your mother, I thought, it's making her feel like a human being, right?
Mhm.
It's saying you still matter as a person. And I tell a story near the end of the book about what I call 2 afternoons in hospice. And it was basically sitting and talking with a woman whose father was dying. He didn't need that much care. He was very comfortable. But she and I just sat in his room in front of a window. It was a beautiful spring day and there was a breeze coming in, and we talked about life. And before I had been diagnosed, I would have thought, wow, I just wasted so much time. I can't believe it. I could have been doing X, Y, and Z important thing, right? And after my diagnosis, I felt like that was some of the best work I'd done, because she needed that to feel like a person, not just a daughter whose father is dying. And there was so little of that in my care, that sense of you're still a person, not just a body with a breast that has a problem attached to it.
I know, it's interesting. Well, my dad got, he was in the hospital in Massachusetts at Mass General. He had all the best doctors, and they thought at first it was lymphoma because he lost his vision in his eye, and it turned out at the end to be glioblastoma.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so, but it was funny to see, well, interesting, I shouldn't say funny, interesting to see how different each nurse and doctor and the surgeons, that's like a whole other category of people. Like, you see the jokes on TV, like, what was that show, Scrubs? And it's true, like the surgeon comes in, he's like, "Dur, dur, 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 dur," that's it. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute, I've got a couple questions. And they're like, nope, on to the next. Like, that was it. So it's amazing how much of a difference the nurses that you're involved with and the doctors can make in care, and just making you feel comfortable. Some of them you're like, wait a minute, do you even know my dad's name? I don't even know. You're just giving him medicine and that's it.
Yeah, and that's so difficult because you need to trust the people taking care of you. And one of the early stories in the book is I had a follow-up mammogram with an ultrasound. They found my tumor on ultrasound. And in case people listening don't know, a scan is never a 100% diagnosis. They actually need to look at a piece of the tumor on a cellular level, and only then can they definitively say this is cancer. But she was very, very sure, and she was right, it turns out. But they said, you will not leave today without an appointment for a biopsy. So I thought, great, they've got this, right? This is terrible. This is the worst day of my life, but someone's going to be taking care of me and sort of shepherding me along. And so I went to sit down to schedule the biopsy, and I had tear streaks on my face. I was all hunched over, and no one came. And finally, another receptionist came by and said, oh, she leaves at 3. You just missed her. And I just wanted to hurt that person. I was so angry. And it's, so many things got broken in that moment, right? My sense of trust, my confidence that people were looking out for me, my belief that there actually was a system in place. And the more I thought about it, the more upset I got, because I wondered, what if I weren't me? What if I weren't the kind of person who's going to call at 8 the next morning, right? And say, I need an appointment as soon as possible, which is what happened. And even then I had to push. Like, the first thing she offered me was 2 weeks away. And that, just wasn't okay. But what if I wasn't that kind of person? What if I felt like, well, if they don't care, why should I care? Then maybe I come back next year for my mammogram. Oh, you still have this tumor and now it's twice as big, and, or 3 times as big, or just, caring isn't just about, oh, I want to feel good while I'm getting my treatment. It's important for people to do what's being asked of them, to take care of themselves. And we have so much lost that. and our healthcare. And, you're saying Mass General, it's a great hospital, right? I'm sure from a clinical standpoint, your dad had excellent physicians, but if you feel like the doctor coming in the room maybe doesn't even know your dad's name, that makes you feel really uncertain and scared. It's scary.
It's very scary. At the end, they even though it was during COVID, they let me stay with him because it was the end. And they were just trying to keep him comfortable until we got him into hospice. But one nurse came in late at night. It was like the shift changed, and he came in and he was just giving my dad all kinds of like this and that and shots. And I was like, what the heck? I felt like he just didn't want to have to come into that room 100 times overnight. So he just gave my dad a bunch of medicine so he did not get agitated, because he was getting very agitated at the end. And anytime he felt like he had to go to the bathroom, he was, even though he was like, out of it, he was still trying to like jump out of the bed. And, at one point they had to put the restraints on him, which is just, for a daughter to see your dad like that is just, it's heartbreaking. Like, where's his, I know they were doing it for his own good. I understand that, but still, like, to see your dad like that, it's just heartbreaking beyond.
Where's his dignity in that? And I'm sure because it was COVID, everybody was working short. Ideally, you would have an aide who could sit in the room the whole time and help calm your dad down. And, the two of you together could maybe find ways to have him be less agitated, get him to stay in the bed. But yeah, that sounds incredibly difficult. And I'm so sorry you had to go through that.
But what can we do to change these problems to make it more personal for the people who work in the hospital and also for the patients? Like, what can change that will help this?
Yeah, well, one thing I've been suggesting a lot is be the difficult patient, and let me explain what I mean, because I started out trying to be the easy patient because I know that's the patient everybody likes because they don't slow down the assembly line. And then I realized this doesn't really work for me, and I had this moment where I realized, oh, wow, I am the difficult patient. I felt sort of embarrassed. And then I realized I'm not being difficult. I'm using that label on purpose because it's the label I'm ashamed to admit we use in healthcare. And I realized I'm not being difficult. I'm actually being appropriate. I'm asking very adult questions. I'm saying, why does this have to take so long? I'm saying, I don't understand. And I really would love for all patients and loved ones to do that, to say, hey, wait a minute, I don't get what you're saying. Hey, why should I have to wait 3 weeks for this? I think if more people did that, hospitals want patients to be happy with their care, or clinics or wherever you're going. If more people did that, I call it a bottom-up revolution. I think that could make a difference. Also, the example I give is where I got radiation oncology, which you don't think of as being warm and fuzzy at all, right? But this was an amazing clinic, and in the basement of the same hospital where the person at 2:59 had left instead of being there to schedule my biopsy at 3 p.m. But they were so wonderful in radiation oncology, and it was very simple things. They told me what the expectations were. They had me watch a video of what the radiation therapy would be like. They were very clear about what I needed to do to take care of myself, to take care of my skin. Everyone was very warm. They obviously knew my name. I went in 5 days a week for 4 weeks, every single time. Hey, Theresa, how you doing? They really treated everyone like a person. And it's not that hard, but it has to come from leadership. And, I really believe if we can somehow get CEOs to stop thinking so much about how much money are we making, and think about what are these very easy, small things we could do. And then if patients can do what they can to say, hey, I don't understand. Hey, slow down. And then as clinicians ourselves, if we can reorient to try and more see patients as people, it's going to take effort, right? But for every patient who's listening or a loved one, I really want you to know it is absolutely okay to insist on understanding, to ask questions. And if you're dealing with a surgeon or if any kind of physician who doesn't listen, is rude to you, you can fire that person. We had hospital patients occasionally who said the physician who was rounding, they would not see that person anymore because the doctor was rude to them. And props to them, and nobody made their life difficult. Nobody held that against them. I think actually there was a kind of grudging respect that they felt like, that's not how I'm going to be talked to just to get healthcare. So don't feel that, well, this is what I have to put up with. It should be possible to expect better and get better.
It's so interesting. You would think with something as important as our life and our well-being and our health, we would be like, that would be the one place that we would stand up for ourselves. But I know what you mean. Like, you get that feeling like, okay, like, I don't want to make waves. I'm just going to be a good person and sit here and try to listen. And it's just, I don't know. I thought it was just me. So I'm glad it's not just me who's like that, because my dad was like that. He never wanted to get like a second opinion or go to someone else, or even like the lawyer. I didn't like his lawyer, and he wouldn't even consider going to someone else because he was like so loyal, which you have to appreciate because loyalty's so not that prevalent anymore. But and another point, like, you have to make sure that this person is looking out for you too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I liked my medical oncologist, but this is a very long story, but I'd been on one medication after my surgery and radiation that really wasn't working for me, and was able to go off it briefly. And then they said, oh, you just have to go back on. And I said, no, I won't do that. And I ended up switching medical oncologists because I just was so unhappy with how they treated me in that situation. And the new person, I don't know if he, let's assume he's just someone who's really good at listening, or maybe he realized, oh, Theresa Brown is just going to do what she wants. And if I want to take care of her, I have to work with her. But, he does that. His PA does that. It feels like I have more of a team and trying to help me figure things out. And, again, another cliche, right? But to them, I had a very treatable breast cancer. It was small, it was slow growing. But to me, I had breast cancer.
Right.
And that's a huge deal. And, we need more understanding on the part of clinicians that, this is your job, seeing all these people, taking care of them, but they're still people.
Right.
And my feeling is the more pressure there's been put on the system to have maximized the amount of money that can be made, we're really minimizing the compassion. And there's data now that shows compassionate care actually is better care, and patients do better. So in the end, it can save money, but it's complicated. It's a complicated relationship.
Right. I did, I have just a quick story.
Sure.
Dad, so he started having seizures. He had a seizure while we were home. And so, he had to go back to the hospital, and then he had another one, and then it really declined quickly. But right before that, the doctors were on their rounds and they had the residents, and my dad must have said something like, well, I didn't realize I was losing sight in the other eye so quickly, and I'm sorry, I didn't speak up sooner. And he was apologizing to the doctors. Well, I got there because, COVID hours got minimized. So I wasn't there for that. But later on, when I was there, the resident came back after her shift and she sat down and she was so good. She held my dad's hand and she told him, you didn't do anything wrong. Like, I
Oh,
don't want you to sit here and think that because you didn't say anything sooner, that's why, you can't see anymore. Like, there was nothing that you could have
oh,
done. And but I just always remember her because I think she took the time after her shift, and I'm sure they were working like crazy hours, and to do that because she felt like she needed to take that burden off of his heart. And I'll never forget that. I'll never ever forget that at all. So that's what we need more of.
yeah. And that's so wonderful. One of the studies that I quote is a qualitative study. They asked patients and family members, well, how do you define compassionate care? And they said they see it as people going above and beyond. So like the resident.
Mhm.
And I get that. At the same time, we can't have a system where kindness and basic civility depends on people going above and beyond, right? We've got
Mhm.
to find more of a way to build that in, so that, right in the moment, maybe they could have all said, hey, you didn't do anything wrong. Or sometimes also it's hard to have that realization right in the moment. It may have taken her a while to realize, oh, wow, I really want to tell him that.
Mhm.
But I would love it if that could be the standard, that kindness and reaching out and coming back and saying, hey, I thought about what you said. And you know what? You couldn't have done anything differently. You absolutely did everything that you could. And for me, when I was struggling with this question of should I take this medication, if I don't, my risk of a recurrence could be worse. And to have the medical team say, hey, this is also about your life and your quality of life. And, you're not 30-year-old stage 3, really difficult to diagnosis,
Mhm.
so we can tolerate this from you. We're not going to push you to take this drug. And I needed that. I needed to feel
Mhm.
like they could be okay with it and talk with me about it. And everybody needs that. We're all human.
I know, you just want to feel not alone and that you're heard,
Yes,
right?
right.
Hmm.
Right. Whether you have a glioblastoma or an ingrown toenail.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. It's so true. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I would love to chat with you again if I can invite you back again. I would
Oh yeah.
love that. Yeah,
I
that
would love to. Yeah. And let me just say, you've really been through the ringer. So my heart goes out to you. And I would love to come back.
Thank you. Well, that's why I started this really. My dad, when we were in the hospital, when he was in the hospital and I was with him, we had a great time. We were laughing and watching Hallmark movies, and he was making fun of himself because he was trying to eat chocolate cake and he was getting it all over, and like I think he went a little crazy, a little more, and like
Uh-huh.
was making me take pictures of him to send to everyone. So he wanted me to share our story. So that's really why I started my podcast and the YouTube page, to really talk about these things and not feel alone, because that was the biggest thing. I was almost relieved that he couldn't see me because I was just like crying all the time because I didn't know
Wow.
what I was doing. I really didn't, but we made it through. Um, but one more time though, tell us about your book and where people can get it.
Sure. So the book is called Healing When a Nurse Becomes a Patient. It should be wherever books are sold. But also, if you don't have a local independent bookstore, bookshop, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, all those places. And if you want to know more about me, you can go to teresabrownrn.com. I'm also on Twitter at Theresa Brown. and Instagram at Theresa Brown RN 2021. And the book again is Healing When a Nurse Becomes a Patient, which was quite an extraordinary transition for me.
I'm sure. Well, again, thank you so much for being with us today, and I look forward to reading your book.
Oh, great. And maybe we'll talk again. Take
Yes,
care.
definitely. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.